Hello, my name is Chang. I'm the CEO of Think Global Logistics, and today I'm doing a talk in anticipation for our workshop at the Sydney Build 2025, aptly named Supply, Deliver, Build Reliable Logistics in an Unstable World. We all have learned through the course of the years that were COVID, supply chain is very important for all of us. And this is especially true in the construction sector, where we saw huge disruptions caused by unreliable logistics or just supply chain breaking down due to the cogs, that is logistics, reacting to the chaos that was created by COVID. It taught us all a huge lesson, and that is the most important part of any business, especially construction, is logistics. I continuously see our friends in the construction sector that approach logistics as an afterthought and not as one of the most critical considerations at the beginning stages of any build or any project. So I'm here to convince you, if you're in construction, that you must include logistics considerations from day one, not the 24th hour. The key elements for any good project or good build rests on two fundamentals, and that is cost and reliable of supply. Those two things, if you get right, you're gonna have a great build, because your customers are gonna be happier because you have delivered a product on time or within budget. So how do we get accurate costs and how do we get reliable supply? Well, firstly, regulations, right? The government regulations, different types of regulations, taxes and all the fees and what have you. Those things, look, you can't really control unless you go to a lobbyist and try to, get them to revamp construction industry and what have you. Look, that's a long shot. Let's just put that aside because no one can change that. It's out of our control. What are some of the other variables? Well, variable of, for example, supply materials, right? Can you get your materials produced on time and in the quantities that you need it, right? That's a massive one. Because if you can't get your materials at the time where you need it, you're not going to be able to ship it. That again is a everyday reality faced by the construction industry. The third part, of course, is logistics, right? Disruptions caused by geopolitics, disruptions caused by seasonality throughout the year. Things like natural disasters, the cyclones in Brisbane or a strike or COVID, all of these have a huge real life impact to supply chains. What are some of the other variables? Well, inflation, the greater economics, the macroeconomics, which again, we can do little about, but those are realities. We have to be a learned person to study, to research, to understand, to keep your finger on the pulse for you to be able to mitigate some of those risks. And then finally, you also have the quality and the steady supply of labor. You're not going to build anything if you don't have a steady stream of good, qualified workers for your builds and for your construction projects. As a logistics person, my role for our sector to you as an industry is that please consider us as the number one consideration as opposed to the last thought. When we speak to our construction customers and what have you, we've all been included way after the fact that they've already got a project, they planned the deadline, and then they looped in the freight guy to have the conversation. It's too late, guys. You keep on operating this way, you're gonna run into problems. You won't have visibility of the supply chain stability or instability. You won't have visibility of the fluctuating costs associated with shipping at a certain time of the year. You won't have any insight in terms of what is this thing called logistics and how does all these, seasons work? When does my project start and when does my project end? And what type of seasonalities will they go through? All of these critical information comes from your trusty logistics provider. So the sooner you engage with people like me, the better you're going to be informed of all of these things that can then mitigate all of the risks that comes from these variables. We can't control the supply of labor. Everybody's going to go through that, right? We can't control the regulations. We can't control geopolitics. We can't control natural disasters. All of that is pretty obvious. But the thing is, what we can control is how we get the goods supplied and at what cost. But you're not going to be able to be in control if you don't have that conversation earlier in the project, because then you're playing catch up and no logistics expert or professional or nerd, whatever you can call it, is going to be able to turn the cogs of the wheel back for you to restart again. So loop us in earlier, you're going to have a lot less headache. For example, during COVID, 99.9% of us didn't really know what was going to happen to the world when COVID first hit. What happened was a bit of a free-for-all. Would you have had a better experience in construction had you started talking with a freight forwarder to ask that freight forwarder, hey, what's going on with the market? What does it look like in the next couple of years when I've got all these projects coming up and so forth? You may very well, because why? It is better to communicate and to get your fingers on a pulse, because each day things were changing. And if you're in close communication, you're able to form and shape a general idea where things are going. Your reaction time is going to be better because you're more prepared, because you're talking to the logistics experts who are seeing firsthand on the ground what's happening with the market, what is happening with supply, capacity, or have you. What is the pricing trend? A lot of our construction customers are going through nightmares because when they signed a contract prior to COVID, pricing was at a certain level, and within the space of 6 months, even though some of these builds would take 2-3 years, right? Within the first 6 months of COVID, pricing had bottomed to almost negligible, and then within 6 months, it went up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. Now, no amount of contracts could shield you against that type of fluctuation. And sure, COVID is also one of those things that only happens once every 100 years. But it's a very extreme example on how things can quickly get away from you if you're really not keeping your fingers on a pulse or trying to get ahead of the problem. What I'm recommending to you is making sure you communicate to your supply chain, all the stakeholders in your supply chain, your factory, speak to them. What are they seeing? Which I'm sure all of you in construction will be doing that, because you guys are very good in talking to your suppliers and keeping your costs down or making sure there's enough supply and what have you, right? But not a lot of you actually engage logistics guys to make sure you understand, okay, well, I can get the goods ready on a certain time or at a certain time. Now it's time to ship it. How can I get that shipped efficiently? I've got these goods, I've got this project. This is the amount of quantity of goods that I'm looking to import. When's the best time for me to ship? To get the best cost, avoid the chaos, avoid the bottlenecks, and where was the most efficient time for me to ship? Are you having that conversation with your logistics guys? If you're not, you should. Let's take Amazon as a case study. They started selling books online, but they quickly realized, hey, we built this platform that can become more and more efficient as we have our reach into our customers, right? And the platform is working well. And what did they do? They quickly pivot into other things, because they quickly went from an online book reseller to today, I consider them a logistics company. My challenge to you, if you're in construction, consider the same thing for yourself. You're not in construction, you are in logistics. You create a platform where you supply and you build. Think about that, let that marinate. Because if you get the supply right, you're gonna deliver on time and you're gonna have a great build, which then all of that translates to happy customers, return customers. So I hope to see you at our workshop where we can have more of a Q&A. The general gist of this topic is pretty clear, guys. You need to have as much consistency as possible. Know your costs, consistency of costs. Know your supply, consistency of supply. Engage the logistics professional or logistics service provider from day one, not the 24th hour. Logistics is the most important part in most industries, in all industries, especially in construction. Thank you for watching.